Hello and welcome back to the CashPT Lunch Hour podcast. This is Aaron LeBauer, your host, and today I have two special guests. It's a two-for-one. I've got Bill Brown and Vatsal from Reimbursify. And so we're going to talk all about insurance today and healthcare entrepreneurism, if that's a word. So Bill, Vatsal, thank you so much for joining me today. Appreciate you guys being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah. So tell me, so for everyone listening, you guys own Reimbursify, or you've developed an app, and it's a app that helps people file claims with health insurance, right?
That's right. That's
okay.
right. So I used to run a full-time private practice. I'm a psychiatrist by training, and I didn't accept any insurance while I did that. Patients would come in and pay me the direct fee, but then they had a lingering question about how to file claims for reimbursement. And so initially I directed them towards their insurance company, but I realized that's not such a great customer service move.
Right.
And so I took it upon myself to look into the process and actually start filing claims for people, much against my better judgment. It didn't take long to figure out that this needs to be an app. The patient needs to be at the center of it. They're the ones who need to track and follow up on the reimbursement. And that's kind of where the idea for Reimbursify was born. Bill had the good fortune or misfortune of being my neighbor in the office suite where I was located. So I decided to take him to lunch one day and pitch him on the idea.
Yeah.
You want to share your thoughts on that?
Sure. Yeah, so Vatsal and I were friends for probably 4 or 5 years prior to launching the company. We had adjoining offices in an executive suite. And my background is software, primarily bringing new software to market. So he approached me with this idea, which I understood immediately, since my wife is a psychotherapist that has a private practice here in Greenwich Village in New York for the past 25 years, and she's never taken any insurance. So I fully understood the challenge from a practitioner perspective. And then I also have 2 young adult daughters that avail themselves of out-of-network services. And so I deeply understood the issues of filing for out-of-network health insurance reimbursement as a patient or client. So I resonated right away with the idea. We spent some time doing some research, talking to some legal experts, making sure that there wasn't any sort of obstacles or roadblocks to us really creating this solution. Then we went out and we raised some money and dove in. We designed the app. It was really built for scale. The whole concept was to design a software platform that was capable of scaling to millions and millions of users, and then taking in out-of-network claim data through a very elegant user interface, primarily through a smartphone. So we designed the app, built it, launched it, and it's been in market now for a little over a year, and we have many thousands of practitioners who recommend it to their caseload, and patients and clients who depend on it to claim their money back.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. So in essence, it's an app that you can use to help your patients file their claims.
Yeah,
right. Okay. So
Absolutely.
Vatsal, tell me, so how long ago did you start your psychiatry practice?
So it was 2007 in New York City that I opened my doors.
And was that right after you graduated from med school and did residency fellowship, or did you?
No, there was a 4 or 5 year lag in there, and I remember thinking in those years that I ultimately want to have my own practice, and I ultimately want to go out of network. So I was sort of building up to that.
Yeah. Why for you was it important to be out of network?
So I think every specialty is treated, has their own unique challenges for being in network. And in my specialty, the unique challenge is trying to get enough time with patients to serve them properly. On average, I don't want to overgeneralize, but on average, a psychiatrist or mental health professional would spend more time with a patient if in an out-of-network setting than an in-network setting. And since we don't have that many fancy tests or scans that we can run to diagnose and treat people, we have to base it on structured conversation, and that requires time.
And is it because is it because insurance doesn't reimburse you as well for your structured conversation as if you were to run some kind of scan on me? They told me my problems, right?
Hey, that's a great business model you just came up with. I think someone beat you to it.
Yeah, I do think that universally it's true that what we see is our experience is that out-of-network providers, we anecdotally and just through our experience, we see more sort of attentive care, and that's I think there's a lot of variables that play into that, and not the least of which is that in-network providers, when providers sign up to be in-network with an insurance company, then they of course agree to a lot of administrivia around filing claims for their patients and clients. So, and I think the industry average I just saw recently was about 18% of their time is spent on insurance claim filing and management. I mean, if you sort of contextualize that, that's a day a week that they are not providing services to their community and their caseload. So I could see how that would make people sort of speed up in the individual sessions.
Yeah. So I guess one of my other questions, Vatsal, I guess this is for you still, is that for like psychotherapists, psychiatrists, mental health, it seems like more, at least from my perspective, more providers who are in practice for themselves are out of network, or is that just, is there a reason, like, versus, let's say, orthopedic surgeons who are in private practice, or even pain meds, especially, you know what I mean?
Right. I think one of the primary reasons is the time-based specialty that we're in, but another one is I recently tweeted that insurance companies pay us 1/3 of our normal fees, whereas insurance companies pay other doctors and practitioners 2/3 of their normal fees. So again, it's not just a time issue, but on a business model perspective, it's apples and oranges, and so we're often it's not even a choice. Coming to New York City, being in network is almost impossible because what they pay in other parts of the country is it's not that different than what they pay for reimbursement in Manhattan, but it's impossible to get an office in Manhattan.
So you're seeing people for 10 minutes and writing a prescription for some medication, and out the door they go, and that's So is it?
We are seeing, across our platform is that, we have every specialty represented in the out-of-network space. We have oncologists, we have neurologists, we have physical therapists. And after the show, I want some tips on helping convert one of my good friends who's an in-network PT to have an out-of-network practice. I've been telling him for years. He'll be a lot happier doing that. But we're in an era of personalized care, and people are realizing, well, if I have a high deductible anyway, I got to pay out of my pocket for an in-network specialist, but I get, different experience and better care in many cases out of network. That barrier is not so great anymore. And a lot of practitioners pick up on that and are creating this sort of direct pay practices.
Do you think, is the stigma with mental health issues part of the reason you think more people are out of network? Like, do patients say, like, I don't even want my insurance company to know I don't trust them? Or is that like not really part of it?
I think it used to be more so. Since I've been in practice, the laws have gotten stronger against that sort of discrimination about insurance companies knowing. The other thing is, probably 1/5 of the country has seen a therapist or counselor or psychiatrist. So, you know, how much stigma can there be when, you know, almost a fifth of the population has gone through?
Right. So tell me, like, where was it in your practice that you realized you had a problem that you were trying to fix in this regard? And like, in regards for like, so was it like the first year you were, you know, what was happening at that time? Were you on the phone with the insurance companies trying to file these claims for people? Were you using some service and it wasn't working? I mean, what was happening when you started?
There was no service. I mean, it was, when I started, it was just me.
Yeah.
And, you know, I would do what I could, you know, look into someone's benefits, or, you know, what comes to mind is one particular patient who basically came in and said, "Doc, I need your help." And I'm thinking, oh no, what's he about to tell me? And he brought out a stack of receipts from my office over the year, and said, and brought up a claim form and basically said, "Help me fill this out." And so, you know, what can you do? So I started, that was my first real experience. I mean, I had filed some claims before then. I never gave it a second thought. Mm-hmm. Didn't get reimbursed because they found some problem with it, of course.
Right. Yeah.
But I started filling out the claims for this one particular, you know, good customer of mine, and realized, hey, I could just hack together a little software and do this for all my patients. Mm-hmm. And then what I learned while doing that was people loved it. Yeah. People actually, I thought, oh, let me open it up to everyone. And so, you know, everyone then wanted me to file their claims, who wouldn't. And then I even heard from new patients that they had heard that, you know, oh, this doctor was going to file the claims for you. So it brought in new patients just on that basis, which kind of blew my mind.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's absolutely something we're seeing. So the whole philosophy around Reimbursify was to empower the patient, the client, to be able to self-file in a way that's super easy and fast. Mm-hmm. So with Reimbursify, you can download the app for free. You file your first claim for free. The first claim filing takes you about a minute. And then if you have repeating appointments, like is common in either mental health or physical therapy, you can use a feature in the app called Clone Claim. So if I come to see Aaron LeBauer and for a physical therapy treatment, and then I have another session scheduled the next week and the following week or whatever it might be, mm-hmm. in those subsequent sessions, I can open the app and tap on the Clone Claim button, and it will copy all of the codes and fees from the first session and just ask me for the new date of service. Oh, wow. And so subsequent claims can be filed in as little as 10 seconds. And so, you know, what we're hearing from practitioners who are providing Reimbursify to their caseload, mm-hmm. is two things. One is clients who are getting reimbursed, who are using the app, they are booking more regular appointments, because if you have a session, let's say it's a $150 session, and it's out of network, and so you use Reimbursify and you file that claim, even if you get paid back, say $60 or $70, that's still a tremendous value to the client, because they're getting $150 service for $80 or $90. Mm-hmm. And so they tend to book more regular sessions. The other thing that we're hearing is that Reimbursify is actually helping practices grow. And one of the ways that's happening is, and I'll just use my wife as just a case in point that I'm familiar with, is, you know, historically when a new potential client would call up to say, I found you online, or somebody referred me to you, or whatever it was, I'm interested in coming to see you. At some point in that initial conversation, the potential client will say, mm-hmm. do you take my insurance?
Right. And
historically, for an out-of-network provider, the answer is no, we don't. But I'll give you a receipt and you can deal with your insurance company on that. Mm-hmm. So what we saw was about a 50% conversion rate. So about half the time when those calls came in, my wife would be able to book an appointment to get the client to come in, and about half the time she'd never hear from them again. So that was how it was. Now with Reimbursify, when that question comes up, do you accept my insurance? We created a script where we encourage the practitioner to say, well, I'm not affiliated with any insurance companies. However, I will give you an app and you can file a claim for reimbursement with your phone in about a minute.
Wow.
And what happens is by changing a no to a yes, in a sense, the conversion rate we're seeing is increased by 25%. And, you know, practitioners understand that it's all about getting the client in the office and being able to establish that personal relationship. Mm-hmm. So we're really pleased with the feedback we're hearing around that.
Yeah, I remember early days in my practice, you know, people would see me a few times and say, well, I think I'm going to stop, or I can't afford it, right? Well, the next question I would ask is, have you been filing for reimbursement? Mm-hmm. And often the answer was no. Well, this was before I was filing claims for them. And, you know, you can see that, well, they're suddenly out all this money. They don't know how to recoup it. And then they're taking it out on my business, right? Because they're going to stop seeing me. And that whole process gets much more conducive with regular, easy reimbursement filings happening.
Yeah, that's amazing. So Bill, what was that? Can you say that script again? Like if I say, hey, so Bill, you know, does your buddy Vatsal take insurance? Because that's the only reason I would ever choose to come see you, right? But what was that? Can you just say that? What was that answer? That script was really powerful.
So the answer is, well, Vatsal is not associated with any insurance companies, but he will give you an app that you can download and file a reimbursement claim from your phone in about a minute.
Wow, that's awesome. Oh, so that just takes a lot of that worry out of
It takes the worry out of mind, and it really addresses this sort of undertone of, oh my God, this is going to cost me money. Mm-hmm. And, you know, studies, you know, there's lots of research and studies and news reporting that is showing that total out-of-pocket spend for healthcare is an absolute top-of-mind issue for Americans today. Right. And everybody pays a lot of money for their health insurance. What Reimbursify does is it allows people to optimize that spend and to actually get money back.
Yeah. What happens when, like, someone, you know, files a claim through it and, you know, their deductible is so high and the insurance is like, oh, maybe their deductible is $2,000. They spent $2,200 with your business, but the allowed amount was only $423. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What happens? Do you get notified that this is, you know, or just get the EOB? Does anything happen through the app?
Yeah. So in the current version of the app, it's not connected to the final claim status. Although we're working on that a new feature that will allow that to happen, where it'll actually update in the app.
Yeah.
But what happens today is you submit a claim and the app will tell you when it gets injected into your health insurance company's claims processing hub. The really cool thing about the app is you can use Reimbursify for any medical or mental health or even alternative health kind of claim filing. So like acupuncture or chiropractic or massage therapy. It's universal in terms of its capability. If you are seeing a healthcare practitioner and they give you a receipt that has a medical code on it, you can use Reimbursify to file a claim. Wow. We inject that into any private health insurance company's claim processing hub, and at that point, you know, it takes on the processing of that specific insurance company, which, you know, is typically about a 3-week process. But what you get is you get almost instantaneous delivery, and you get delivery of a very optimized claim.
Wow, so that's awesome. So yeah. Bill, how did you, you know, so you're meeting Vatsal. How did you take his idea and turn it into an app? Like, what was the connecting points? Like, what was like your zone of genius? And you're like, oh yeah, I can do this. Like, what was that piece that you were like, it connected. Boom.
Well, it was a genius idea that Vatsal came
I
up
think
with.
it started off. I started off as the arrogant know-it-all doctor approaching a tech guy as, I have this great idea, you have to hear it.
Yeah.
And I know he rolled his eyes when I said that.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
he went to lunch with me anyway.
Well, practitioners will really relate to this. I mean, you go to a cocktail party and you're sitting there and says, "What do you do for a living?" And you say, "I run a physical therapy practice." And they go, "Oh, my shoulder here." What do you think? It's like right here. And so it's the same thing in technology. So when you meet someone and they say, "What do you do?" And you say, "Well, I'm a software executive." They say, "I have a great idea for an app." And you're like, "I'm going to grab another drink." But in this case, it was a great idea.
Yeah.
So, we really, and this is really the beauty of Reimbursify as sort of a entrepreneurial endeavor. It really is important to have sort of the ideation, the deep clinical experience and understanding of the insurance, the idiosyncratic nature of insurance claims and the landscape, as well as, the technical aspect of it, how to build something that's super streamlined and intuitive for users to be able to self-file quickly and easily, to be able to enable practitioners to distribute that, and in doing so, essentially eliminate any discussions around insurance, which is exactly why out-of-network practitioners are out-of-network. And then to build something that is secure and scalable. So that's really what we've done at Reimbursify, and we're super excited to share it and engage with people like you and your audience.
That's awesome. What was the biggest challenge of putting something like that into an app? Like, because I know and I want you to answer this there are 2 or 3 people, at least that I know, who are also physical therapy entrepreneurs who are building apps for home exercise or, EHR things instead, or like putting all this stuff into an app. Like, what's the number one challenge that you faced in getting this off the ground so it actually worked?
I can answer.
Yeah, I have one, but I'll let you go.
All right. Well, just from a technical perspective, I would say that the biggest challenge to what we've architected, because Reimbursify is the super lightweight, elegant, streamlined app, but behind the scenes we have a super robust, secure enterprise class software platform that we've built that basically takes this information that somebody can enter in seconds and reorganizes it and optimizes it, injects it into the proper systems, and keeps track of it. So it's really the back end system, which a lot of young or early entrepreneurs don't really take into account. So I've been fortunate. I've had a lot of experience in very large applications that serve, very large customer bases. What would you say?
Yeah, I would say that part of that process was taking this monster of a system, right? No one has ever said insurance claims are easy, and simplifying it while educating the user on what they're doing.
Right.
So, we have to provide enough guidance, but not too much guidance. And it's sometimes that early on, I think that was a bigger challenge than it is now, because we would assume that everyone knows what an ICD-10 code is. Well, that's not the case. Or that everyone knows what a CPT code is, or what CPT stands for. Maybe I should quiz you. But that's not the case. So we have to be very, speak in very plain language and let people who know what they're doing do it, but also let people who might have never filed a claim before, ever even seen a doctor before, be able to do it.
Right. Because asking people to call their insurance company and find out their benefits is like a losing proposition, right?
Yeah. And so one thing that we wanted to do is let people file a claim for free. So anyone can download the app and file one claim for free, so that they can even, that's sort of a different way to check your benefits, right?
Right.
What they say. And then any practitioners that register on our website get a promo code to let their patients file 5 claims for free when they first sign up.
Oh, awesome. And then if patients do have to pay, I think you even said it wasn't even that much money for them to file. Like if.
Yeah, it's currently a couple of bucks per claim to file. And we also have a really interesting model that is pretty popular. We call it Provider Pro.
Mm-hmm.
How that works is a practitioner can register with Reimbursify. Just go to the website and you can click on Register My Practice. And you can sign up for Provider Pro. You pay us a monthly fee. It's currently $99 a month. And then all of your clients then can file their out-of-network claims at no cost to the client. So it's sort of a nice concierge-like service that you can offer to your caseload. It helps differentiate your practice. Again, it helps in that process of not only am I going to give you an app, but it's going to be free for you for anything that for any claims from my practice.
And it requires no extra work or even thought behind it, because we base it on a practitioner's NPI number.
Mm-hmm.
So any claims that come in, we just don't charge the patient for those claims.
Wow. And so, I mean, that's much less expensive than hiring someone or paying 8% of claims or something like that, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. So when one of your patients or clients files a claim with Reimbursify, it's a per claim fee if they're paying for it, which is currently about $2. And if it's Provider Pro, of course, it's nothing. It's free for the user. But all the reimbursement, 100% of the reimbursement comes back to the patient client.
Wow.
Reimbursify never takes any of the reimbursement.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Vatsal, I have a question for you, and this is kind of related but different because we're talking about money, right? We're talking about, what's people's problem? It's like, oh, it's going to cost a lot. I don't know how much it's going to cost. I don't know if it's worth coming into, get my head shrunk by Vatsal, or by, get my, arm torn off by Dr. LeBauer or whatever. It's like, you're like, I don't know if it's going to work. Okay, so there's that question about money on the side of the patients, right? But then our job as out-of-network providers is to actually charge an amount that's worth something, that pays the bills and pays the rent. Because, I know a lot of people and have clients in New York City who probably aren't charging enough in New York City. And when I talk to them, I'm like, hey, you need to really raise your prices because you're struggling and rent's $5,000 a month. But there's a lot of resistance. So from your background as a psychiatrist, can you tell me why is there resistance from patients and providers in raising the rates and charging enough? Is it even the same thing?
That's a great question. Your stripes as a consultant to private practices shining through there. No, it's a great question, because I think practitioners of any kind, we got into the business to help people, not to extract competitive fees from them.
Right.
So, when for years, I opened my practice, kind of with below market rates, which was good in the first couple of years. And then I was always slow to raise my rates to what other people were charging. That changed over the years, but I think part of that is, we're uncomfortable talking about money, right? Because the healthcare system is so weird. Most people, money's an afterthought because insurance will pay for it, or, we're naturally uncomfortable because we're not trained in business. And I think you're right that many people could and should actually raise their fees. I remember there was a point about 5-6 years ago that I was, almost burning out. Practice was full, and I was charging below market rates. Ask any economics student, what's the problem with that scenario? It's basically that I need to raise my rates because I'm providing too much access and not charging enough for that transaction. And I sometimes, early on, I would feel bad if I lost a patient because of the fees. Well, I needed to get over that, because I need to set a fee where I'm not the right choice for maybe every patient,
right?
But I'm the right price point for the patient I want,
Right.
and who needs me and my expertise. So, you know, it's a complicated decision process, but I think as a whole, most practitioners are on the side of charging too little rather than too much.
Mm-hmm. Do you think is it only because we're afraid to ask for like money in exchange for a personal service that has no tangible value? Or is there some, you know, because I don't have an injection that I'm doing that now, like, hey, it's $150. It's like,
Right.
I'm actually very like, you're talking and I'm using my hands and talking to people and educating them. There's not much other tangible that they're walking out with.
Well, yeah, I think that is part of it, but I think that's also in my own former practice, it helped me kind of beef up my product, if you will.
Yeah.
Because I ended up I used the whiteboard, right? So I would draw out concepts, right? Because, you know, maybe the last doctor didn't explain what this medication does for this person. So I'll draw out like, you know, serotonin and whatever. Or, you know, at some points I would like print up educational material and, you know, I had these custom folders made with my practice logo on them so they can take them home, because no one digests all of the information that a doctor tells them during the appointment, right? They got to think about it. They got to review, you know, replay it in their head later. So I think some of that can also help, and it's also good care, right? To provide those things, but you know, that adds to some of the tangible value that also corroborates the intangible part that they're getting in the office.
Right, right. And do you think we're patients? Do you think are they overly concerned with what it's going to cost because that's the way they're trained by the rest of the system, or because the system is so unclear as to actually what it's going to cost? You know what I mean? Like they come in with this, you know, like fear of like, oh, it's got to be expensive, but expensive compared to, you know, you and I understand, like expensive compared to what, like,
that's
you know,
right.
But like, where is where's the agitation coming from on part of most of the patients? Is it just not knowing what's going to happen afterwards with their wallet or something else?
I think there's different patient types, right? If there's someone who's never gone out of network, then they're comparing you to a $40 copay.
Right.
So they have to understand or need the service, right? In that situation, sometimes the in-network resources might have a 4-month wait, and they can see someone like you or me next week.
Right.
And so that's a tangible value. I think there's just a lot that goes into that. You know, it depends on the geographic area as well. I think in big cities and in the metro areas, and like I said, there's so much more personalized health now. There's direct primary care. There are apps now where you can pay for a therapist and get a video session, and it's out of network. So I think people are getting more accustomed to what am I getting for my money, and especially if they have a high deductible either way, right? And it's only a few bucks more to go out of network. So I think.
Yeah, I think that there's variables that I think it's a dynamic between both you know, practitioner and patient on both sides of the equation. So you know, I sometimes I think that and I'm you know, my social circle, I know a lot of practitioners across healthcare spectrum, and you know, I think that a lot of times they don't understand, especially younger, newer practitioners who are maybe pretty new to the market and developing their practices. They don't really recognize this sort of mutuality that has to exist between the practitioner-patient relationship, and they just see it from one side. So what I mean by that is, you know what you're delivering, and when a client or a patient comes to your practice, you know, you're a professional. You've been trained to deliver whatever your service is to improve their physical health or their mental health or whatever it might be. So they're coming to you with an issue, and the price point around that is just so variable in terms of that dynamic. I know that, for instance, I've spoken to mental health practitioners in the city who said that when they raised their prices, they actually started booking more sessions because there's this sort of implicit bias we have around if something costs a certain amount, it's good. If something costs more, then it's going to be better than something that costs less. There's this sort of, again, it's a lot of sort of psychology to it, but I think practitioners as a whole need to look at market rates in whatever area that they're in, both in terms of their specialty and their geography, and you have to develop confidence in your ability to deliver excellent services.
Yeah, and I think there's an additional layer of cost effectiveness we can bring to the table. For example, for years, since I was a trainee, I would make it a point to know what the price of the meds are that I'm prescribing. And no one else was doing that at my level.
Yeah.
So someone could see me and we could actually save them money on medication, right? Regimen or generics or whatever, or in your case, maybe, some sort of testing or service, or, maybe the cash price for an MRI here is much lower than the in-network price that they're going to have to pay with their high deductible. So, I know it's trained me to kind of look at the whole patient, both financially and medically, so I'm, making sure they're going for their regular preventive care appointments and reaching out to their other practitioners to coordinate things. And, it's a mindset. It's, I would never go back. If I'm in a full-time practice again, even if I have to charge $10
he's never going back to
right.
a full-time practice. We need him here because he can impact millions of people here.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I just want to share one little trick that happened recently, that a practitioner friend who was talking about raising her prices. She wanted to raise her prices and she was very tentative about it. She was afraid. And so what I said to her is I said, here's what you do. The next time you get a patient, a potential client outreach, you tell them that your price point is where you want your price point to be. So when they say, how much is it for a session with you, you tell them not what you've been charging, but what you want to charge. And then you keep doing that until you've had 3 calls where the patient doesn't come. So you have to be able to be disciplined. And the first time you raise your price from $125 to $150 a session, if that first patient doesn't come, you do it again. And if the second patient doesn't come, you do it again. And then if the third patient doesn't come, you're at the right place. But she said that it never happened. So she raised her price point on the next call she got that patient, came in, became a long-term patient, and then that became her price. And since then, she's gone from $125 a session to $175 a session, and she has a really thriving practice. So sometimes, you just have to set sort of a mental technique for yourself,
right?
To find out what your value is in the market. And she was pleasantly surprised.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's all up here.
That's right. That's it. That's it.
Bill, what's the difference between this business as a healthcare business and maybe some of the non-healthcare tech businesses you've done? Is there something that sets us apart?
I've known this man for 5 years. I've never asked him that question. So I can't wait to hear this.
That's awesome.
This is meaningful. This is, I mean, when I see some of the customer care, questions that come in and people ask us for help filing a claim. Well, I'm trying to file a claim for this and that, and how do we do this and what happens and what's the status of my claim with this? When we resolve those issues, when somebody starts filing for their reimbursement and they start getting hundreds, or we have people who get thousands of dollars back, it is transformative. And it is such an incredible thing to be able to do something that's good, that supports people's health. Again, I just, one thing that really drives Reimbursify is we, as a company, young company, but we have a really strong culture around justice, doing the right thing. Sometimes we spend maybe a little too much time on a single person, on a single claim, but it's meaningful.
Yeah.
And so the feedback we get is worth it. It's fantastic. Versus having a piece of, going to market with a piece of software technology that does some sort of corporate function that maybe saves some big bank $5 million a year.
Right.
It's way more meaningful for me to save a person $1,000 a year than the former.
Right. That's so awesome. That's really cool. Vatsal, another question before we wrap up. For you, you were in private practice for what, 4 or 5 years, right? Or was it longer than that?
22, almost 8 years.
Oh, 8 years. Okay. So 8 years. If you did it again, what would you do different? Or what would you like, or really it's like, what would be your biggest piece of advice for someone who's just getting in or just starting in an out-of-network private practice, cash-based practice, something like that?
What would I do different, or how I would counsel someone who's
just so like, how would you, like, someone who's listening, who's just getting started, or is maybe a few years in, like, what is like the best looking back piece of advice for them that you think would be important to know?
It's scary. I remember taking the plunge, if you will, like moving from a salary at a medical center to self-sufficiency in a private practice. And it is scary. I mean, even though, looking back, like there shouldn't have been anything I should have been scared of.
Yeah.
But, making the rent, paying for health insurance, making enough money to pay your own rent and stuff. It's scarier than you think is the first thing I would say. I kind of alluded to this earlier. I think I don't care where I am. If I'm back into a practice setting, I can't see myself ever accepting insurance, even if I have to take $10 a visit or $50 a visit, right? Because it's just so much more of a pure transaction. It's so much more of a connection. I'm not spending half my visit wondering how I should document the visit for the insurance company to know that I had this visit with a patient, right? It's just about that person and serving them. And then the other thing I would say is that I did a lot of, I used a lot of technology in my practice. So, I was using an online calendar before people knew that they could subscribe to online calendars.
Right.
I started using a web-based health record system before they were really that common. Because I would just wanted, I wanted to see people and not have a lot of overhead and work efficiently. So, and part of that was ultimately filing claims for them, right? I saw that as part of what I thought my practice should offer them as part of the experience. And that's kind of informed the development of the product we have now to help patients and practices.
Would you say that, once you get a practice set up and running, that there's just nothing so rewarding, right? I mean, it's just, payoff is just... I had pretty much a dream practice. I would look back and say, and part of what I did actually, because I had built it with, to run efficiently and with all the tools, is that I was able to sell it. To right before we launched Reimbursify, but it's still I still feel like, thinking back 3-4 years ago, that it was kind of a dream practice. Other than being a long commute, that was another problem with it, because we ultimately moved out of New York City, but there was just something grounding about it. Running it and having a patient population that looks to you and that you have relationships with and refer their family members and their friends to you because you're the only one they should see.
You know, there's no better compliment or reward.
You know, the thing is that, you know, a lot of people don't talk about this, but it was incredible what you did was, and this isn't true, you know, across all practices, but you really built a valuable practice that you ultimately actually sold for a lot of money. So it was a practice that was an asset. It was actually a financial asset. So that's pretty commendable. That was one of the reasons why I knew he'd be a great business partner.
That's awesome. What were the key things that made it an asset? Was, you know, like, because in a cash practice, I don't really have accounts receivable, right? So what were some of the things that you did, Vatsal or Bill, that maybe you saw in his business, you're like, that's an asset?
Tell him. He really did a great job.
I mean, you know, I didn't go to school for business, though I minored in economics. But, you know, I basically, I mean, now I know the terminology now as a startup co-founder, but I had a funnel, right? So I had a funnel of new patients because I would reach out to therapists who wanted to refer patients. So I had probably 50 or more referring psychologists, social workers who would refer to me as a psychiatrist. Then I had an onboarding process. Again, I didn't call it onboarding when I ran the practice, but, you know, I had online forms. Actually, they could see my fees, right? They would inquire as a new patient. It would send them the fee schedule and kind of how my practice runs and what, you know, how I'm different and why they should see me. And so literally I could walk in on a work day. Oh, and then ultimately I added a remote assistant who would answer phones and be, you know, it was like she was there, but, you know, supporting my practice. It's like she was there physically, but she was not. So I could literally show up for a work day, you know, with a new patient scheduled and several reschedules, and it's all already taken care of, whether they did it online or my assistant did it. And it was like a turnkey operation that, you know, someone else could be sitting in this seat if they're the right person to take over the practice. So the asset was really kind of the way it was run. And then of course the patient, the referral sources I had, as well as just the patient volume, you know, because it's hard to switch practitioners, right? So if they're coming to this office, they're going to go ahead and come to this office and see if the next person that's sitting here, they'll give them a shot, right? And then it's up to him to keep them.
Right.
And so that's in a nutshell.
Let me distill this into very simple business terms. He built a great brand that had repeatable success and satisfied customers. That's it. And that's something that is not particularly common.
Yeah. So Bill, you said it cut out right when you said to build a brand. What was the middle thing?
Hold on. There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So what Vatsal did was, without explicitly understanding this at the time, is he built a brand, which I know you understand very, very well, and that's really important. It's important to create a brand, even if it's your personal brand as a practitioner. What do you represent to your patient and client community as a practitioner? Right. You know, integrity, expertise, you know, accessibility, whatever that is. You create a brand, and then you create a process to deliver those services repeatable. And then out of that process comes satisfied patients and clients, which go out and amplify your brand and creates this asset of a practice which Vatsal actually sold. And so that is really a beautiful thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So, wow, congrats. Not many people do that because they'll just shut it down because it was all built around them.
They don't teach that in medical school. I don't think they teach that in medical school, Aaron. And, you know, that's one of the reasons why, you know, forums like this are so important, especially to new and up-and-coming practitioners.
I think if I, in my non-clinical time and maybe post-startup, whenever that is, I think I would love to teach business to healthcare practitioners as a voluntary service.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think that would be amazing.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
They need it. Like PT business is like, take $250,000 loan, build a 5,000 square foot facility, write a business plan. And it's just like, can we change those two figures? No. Well, guys, we're about out of time. So thank you for being here. Can you, if someone wants to find out more about you or find out a little bit about Reimbursify, where do they find you guys, like personally online? Like, are you on Twitter, Instagram, somewhere? And
Yeah, we're on, we're on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. We do have an Instagram account. We started it. It's not, it's fledgling right now,
Okay.
but we're interviewing some social media people right now around that are like, what do you mean you're not focused on Instagram? But of course, you can always just go to our website at reimbursify.com. Take a look around, click on the healthcare provider button, learn more, register your practice for free.
Okay.
I think we're going to make a special offer for your audience today as well.
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to do we'll put the link on the show notes page, but if you're listening and you want to go to LeBauerConsulting.com/Reimbursify, I'll make sure that link goes to the offer or free registration page and et cetera for you guys.
Perfect.
So
yeah.
LeBauerConsulting/Reimbursify, and you'll find it there.
Got it.
All right. Vatsal, anything else from you?
No, I think what you're doing is great because, what I just talked about doing in teaching business to healthcare practitioners, you're already doing and made a business of it. So hats off to you and for the good work you're doing.
Thank you very much. Well, Bill, Vatsal, it's been a pleasure speaking with you guys. I hope I get to meet you guys in person someday soon. And I look forward to seeing what you guys grow. And we're actually starting to use Reimbursify in our clinic, in the last week. And so I'm looking forward to hearing how my patients, respond to it and how we can start using it in those first phone calls to, kind of deflect some of the uncertainty around reimbursement. So thank you guys.
If they have any issues, if anybody ever has any questions at all, you can send an email to hello@reimbursify.com. We have a whole team of people that will respond. And if you're ever in New York, Aaron, drop us a line and we're going to set you up to a Broadway show.
Sounds good. Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I'll take you up on it. I'm sure. It won't happen the next few weeks, but we'll be there soon. So thank you guys so much for the CashPT lunch hour. This is Aaron LeBauer and Bill and Vatsal, and go out there and just don't worry about the insurance companies. And if you like this show, go ahead and leave us a review on iTunes, screenshot it, share it with your friends, tag us, and we'll see you on the next episode. Have a good day.